Hello and most welcome to 1922. And we will today continue with Paul Feyerabend's philosophical investigations. And here you can see that it in this lovely old hand, almost not handwriting, but old type, old font. I do like it because some of the letters are different. They are not all in Concord. Makes for a beautiful impression. Last time we looked into that the idea of MRP is certainly not always present when we do reading, but also that it doesn't seem to have a purpose. It doesn't explain anything. It, as I mentioned, it doesn't help with the connection between sign and signified, as in the case of Saussure. It doesn't put them together or show how on earth could it be that a sign is connected to something signified. Neither does it explain how on earth is it possible for us to read in the same way if everything is, or at least coming from the inside. So the original is stemming from the big dark inside. This unknown well of mysterious things. We have never looked at these things more carefully. Doing so leads us to quite other conclusions. I would say that it's an ocean of otherness, but the work needs to be done. You really need to put your mind to it and think these things thoroughly. And I'd say it's slowly. The Wittgensteinian thinking calls for a slow down thinking. Not as quick, not as rushed, not with a preconceived idea what we want to understand. Yeah, I think that actually cuts it. Not with a preconceived idea of what we want to understand. Leave that open. Usually there is a preconceived idea. What is it that we want to understand? But in this case, you need to be more liberal, accepting what will come. And I see a close connection here to original, as we discussed in the Bible interpretations. The original is also this something coming from the well. On the surface, it seems to be more fact-based, something more tangible. It is an original. And you have the idea that is something imprinted on parchment or papyrus somewhere, and that will bring greater force to whatever you are looking for. So here you have a preconceived idea of what you want to find. And the means of finding it are very dubious. There is no essence in the original. They're all different. And they are not as strong as the original, so to speak, original written text, which is participatory. It is already in a relation with people. It has its meaning already well established by doing. The idea that the original contains a clearer meaning is based on private language. There can be no clearness coming from or to find an original text. It's been out there all the time. In a way, it can be called meaningless or having very little sense. I will continue on page 464. And I am now on the third paragraph, subchapter 8. 8, 8, indeed. Subchapter 8. What can you say? Or what can you do? The meaning we connect with a certain sign is a mental picture. We do not look into the mind of a person in order to find out what he is really saying. We take his utterance at the face value. For instance, we assume that when saying, I hate you, he is in a state of hating. If I give anyone an order, I feel it to be quite enough to give him signs. And I should never say, this is only words. Most unlikely. Equally, when I have asked someone something and he gives me an answer that is a sign, I am content that was what I expected. And I do not raise the objection. No, but that's a mere answer. Answer. In our present view, this attitude is easily shown to be superficial. Superficial. For it might be that on looking into the speaker's soul or mind, we discover something quite different. For instance, love in the person who said, I hate you. Now, two questions arise about this procedure. First, why trust the language of the mind? One wonders what kind of language this may be when we do not trust the overt language. That is the sentence, I hate you. I hate you. For instance, 74 and all the passages on the interpretation of rules. 197 FF. For whatever appears to be found in the mind can be interpreted in various ways. Once we have decided not to proceed as we usually do. That is, not to take parts of a certain language game which we are playing at the face value. Secondly, let us assume that somebody who really loves a certain person tells her that he hates her. Hates her? Oh dear. Does this fact make I hate you mean the same as I love you? Or imagine a person who abounds in slips of the tongue, giving what we consider to be a wrong or an irrelevant answer, doesn't that reaction of considering his answer as irrelevant show that what he says is thought to be meaningful independently of what he is thinking? Thinking. For we do not say, he certainly gave the right answer. What he said was accompanied by the right thought process. No. But rather, he gave a quite irrelevant answer. Maybe he didn't understand or question or expressed himself wrongly. 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 Or suppose I said A, B, C, D and meant the weather is fine. For as I uttered the signs, I had the experience. For as I uttered the signs, I had the experience normally had only by someone who had year in, year out used A in the sense of the, B in the sense of weather, and so on, and so on. Wow. Does A, B, C, D now mean the weather is fine? Fine. Fine. And to the question, how does somebody else find out what I meant by A, B, C, D? Of course, I can explain to him that A, B, C, D means the weather is fine, and I can also indicate how the parts of the first string of signs are related to the parts, the words of the second string. Second string. But it would be a mistake to assume that such an explanation reveals what A, B, C, D really means. means, means. From the few words which I intend to be an explanation, one cannot yet judge whether an explanation has been given or not. Of course, I say ABCD means the weather is fine, or by ABCD I mean the weather is fine, and I have the intention of giving an explanation. But now, imagine someone saying Mr. A and Mrs. B loved, I mean lived, together for a long time. Long time.
Long time.
In this case, he does not want to give a definition or an explanation according to which love is supposed to mean the same as live, rather live, sorry. Rather, he committed a slip of the tongue and wanted to correct himself. Correct himself. Correct himself. In certain cases, this is clear enough. In other cases, it follows. For instance, from the fact that love is never again mentioned in connection with Mr. A and Mrs. B, etc., etc., etc. When therefore I say by A, B, C, D, I mean the weather is fine, is not yet certain what the case is. Poor voice. Whether I intended to give an explanation or was just awaking from a kind of trance, or whatever else might be the case. The case. the case. The way I mean is to be interpretive, follows from the context in which the whole sentence is uttered and from what we find out about the future use of the sign A, B, C, D. 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 In order to find out whether A, B, C, D really means the weather is fine. We have therefore to find out how A, B, C, D is being used quite independently of any feelings on the part of the person who said A, B, C, D, and of any explanation given by him. Of course, his explanation may be the starting point of a training in the use of a new language in which A, B, C, D really have the meanings indicated. Indicated. But note now that A, B, C, D makes sense only within this language game. I cannot mean the weather is fine by A, B, C, D before this language game has been established. Established. I myself could not possibly connect any sense with A, B, C, D before the elements of this sign have become meaningful by being made elements of a certain language game. Language game. It's a game, and the game is on. I myself could not possibly connect any sense with A, B, C, D before the elements of this sign have become meaningful by being made elements of a certain language game. Indeed. And even the fact that I had the experience normally had only by someone who had year out, year in used a in the sense of the, be in the sense of whether, and so on, could not make them meaningful. I could not even describe the experience as I did just now.
Just now.
Because such a description does not yet exist.
It's
Poor voice. What happened? We have to conclude that no mere mental effort of a person A can either make a string of signs mean something different from the meaning it has within a certain language game of which it is part, played by the people who come into contact with a, or justify its being said that he means something different from everybody else who uses it. This seems rather paradoxical, but let us assume for a moment that two people belonging to a tribe unacquainted with games should sit at a chessboard and go through the moves of a game of chess, and with the appropriate mental accompaniments. Accompaniments. And if we were to see it, we should say they were playing chess. But now imagine a game of chess translated according to certain rules into a series of actions which we do not ordinarily associate with a game, say into yells and stamping of feet. Boom, boom, thump, thump. And now suppose those two people to yell and stamp instead of playing the form of chess that we are used to, and this in such a way that the procedure is translatable by suitable rules into a game of chess. Should we still be inclined to say that we're playing a game? A game? I don't know. I wonder. The decision, wider. The decision of this question again depends on the situation. Imagine, for instance, that the gelling and stamping has an important role within a religious ceremony of the tribe. Of the tribe, of the tribe, widen, up. Think up. That any change of procedure is said to offend the gods and is treated accordingly. The offenders are killed. Oh dear, yes, stuff. In this case, neither the possibility of the translation nor the presence of the chess feelings in the minds of the participants would turn this procedure into a game of chess. Although it is also quite possible to imagine a tribe where people who lose games of chess are thought to be hated by the gods and are killed. Oh dear. But in this case, a difference will be made between games and religious procedures by the fact that is, or for instance, that only priests are admitted to the latter, or that different expressions are used for describing them. Describing them, indeed. Which is missing in our case. Indeed. On the contrary, the strange mental state of those who are troubled by chess feelings would be an indication either of insanity or of the lack of religious feeling. Feeling. Now we can turn round our whole argument and look at the people who are sitting at the chessboard and moving the pieces. The pieces! Are they really playing chess? Are they? I don't know. Let's find out. We see now that the inspection of their minds does not help us. They might be queer people thinking of chess when they are performing a religious ceremony. Their assertion that they are playing chess even is not necessarily helpful, for it might be that they heard the words from somebody else. And misinterpreted them to mean sitting in front of the board and making arbitrary moves with pawns. Pawns. The fact that they are using a chessboard does not help us either. For the board is not essential to the game. What then is essential? The fact that they are playing according to certain rules, that they follow the rules of the chess game. Chess game. Applying this result to the meaning of sentences in general, we arrive at the idea that if anyone utters a sentence and means or understands, it is he operating a calculus according to definite rules. Thus, in analyzing the concepts of meaning, understanding, thinking, etc., we finally arrived at the concept of following a rule. But before turning to that concept, we have to get more insight into the concept just mentioned, and especially into the concept of intention. Intention, intention. B. It is the queer thing about intention, about the mental process, MRP, that the existence of a custom, of a technique, is not necessary to it. That, for example, it is imaginable that two people should play chess in a world in which otherwise no game existed, and even that they should begin a game of chess and then be interrupted. The underlying idea is the same. As in the case of meaning. Just as we can attach meaning to a sign by just connecting its use with a certain image, which we voluntarily produce, we can also intend to do something by which we voluntarily produce. We can also intend to do something by producing a certain mental picture. Entreth the mental picture, the MRP. But how? We have to ask, is it possible to find out whether or not A who just announced his intention of playing chess was really intending to do so? Surely, chess is defined by its rules. Should we therefore conclude that the rules of chess were present in the mind of A when he uttered his intention? Question mark.
Intention.
Investigation similar to that of 4 CA above will show that not every act of intending to play chess is accompanied by a special mental picture, which is characteristic of the intention of playing chess. Of course, the intention to play chess is sometimes present quite distinctly. Like, I have not played chess for a long time. I am a keen player. I'm a keen chess player. And now I want to play chess and will not stop looking until I have found a chessboard and a suitable partner. But this is only a special kind of intending to play chess. Therefore, its characteristics cannot be the reason for calling other cases of intending to play chess. Cases, for instance, in which these characteristics are completely absent. They do not exist. Where did they go? Maybe they were never there. How does that explain it? But if we assume, on the other hand, that A has a perfect copy of the rules of chess before his inner eye, must he necessarily follow the features of this copy in such a way that the result will be a game of chess? Chess. Chess. Is it not possible that he either interprets them in an unusual way, that in going over from the reading of his mental picture to the outer world, the chessboard, his actions in front of the chessboard, he automatically makes a kind of translation. So that finally he is not doing what one would be inclined to call playing chess. And should we still say that he is intending to play chess just because somewhere in the chain of events which in the end lead to his actions, a copy of the rules of chess enters in? Of course, we could interpret this copy as we are used to do. But is he interpreting it in the same way? And even if he could tell us how he is interpreting it, do we know how to take his explanation? We see that interpretations by themselves do not determine meaning. We have simply to wait and if he really acts in such a way that he regards playing chess as we understand it, as a fulfillment of his intentions, then we may say that he intended to play chess. Indeed, there it is. But if it turned out that he did not know how to play chess, or that apparently intended to play chess, he sat down at the chessboard and made irregular moves, we should, under certain circumstances, conclude that he had wrong ideas as to his intentions. Of course, the phrase under certain circumstances has to be inserted. For it is perfectly possible that A, intending to play chess, was introduced to a person he did not like, and with the intention of avoiding playing chess with him, acted as if he did not know the rules of chess, as if he had never intended to play chess. Chess! Chess! But what has to be criticized is the idea that such a difference might be found out by inspecting his mind. Or soul, and by reading off his intention from his mental processes. it is his further actions,
talking included,
as well as his personal history,
which teach us
how we are to take his first utterance that he intended to play chess. But as it now turns out that our criteria for deciding whether a person
A
intends to play chess or not are extended in time, we have to conclude that intending to play chess
cannot
be a mental event
which
occurs at a certain time.
cannot have a timeline.
Intending is not an experience. It has no experience content. For the content, images for instance, which accompany and illustrate it, are not the intending.
Are not the intending.
The same applies to understanding. Let us examine the following kind of language game. When A gives an order, B has to write down a series of signs according to a certain formation rule. The orders are of the kind 1, 2, 3, or 2, 4, 6, 8, or 2, 4, 9, 16, or why not 2, 6, 12, 20, 30, 42, etc. B is supposed to continue the series
In a certain way.
That is, he is supposed to write down the series of numerals in the first case, the series of even numerals
In the second case.
First of all, A will teach B the rules
Of the language game. The language game.
He will then give orders to B.
in order to check B's abilities. He will finally state that B has mastered the system, that he understands it. It should be clear that when used in this way, understanding cannot signify a mental phenomenon. For we also say that B understands, is master of the language game just explained, when lying on his bed and sleeping. Yeah. but, but the mental act philosopher is ready with a new expression. He speaks of a subconscious mental phenomenon.
Subconscious?
Subconscious. That is, he says that B, although dreaming perhaps of beautiful women, is, is nevertheless subconsciously thinking of the new language game and its rules. The objection to this idea are obvious. Whether subconscious or not, the alleged thinking process may or may not determine the actual behavior of B. That is, B may not be able to carry out the orders of A, although a clever psychologist has found out that the thinking process, which is supposed to accompany his ability to obey the orders, is present. We shall not say in this case that B has mastered the game, that we have discovered a special case of mastering the game. We shall simply say that he had not mastered it, although he or the psychologist thought he had. This objection being accepted, it might be said that knowing the game is a state of the mind perhaps of the brain, by means of which we explain the manifestations of that knowledge. Such a state is called a disposition. But there are objections to speaking of a state of the mind here, inasmuch as there ought to be two different criteria for such a state: a knowledge of the construction of the apparatus quite apart from what it does. Quite apart. What the apparatus does is, in our case, the actual behavior of B when he receives certain orders. Orders, orders, nothing but orders. But understanding in this sense is not meant to be an understanding of a game as a whole. Understanding the rules of chess, that is, knowing how to play chess, but understanding the meaning of a particular move within the game. For instance, understanding the order 2, 4, 6. Let us imagine the following example. A writes series of numbers down. B watches him, and tries to find a law for the sequence of numbers. Numbers. If he succeeds, he exclaims, "Now I can go on." So this capacity, this understanding, is something that makes its appearance in a moment. And this suggests that understanding used in this way might mean a mental event. A mental event. But wait. Do we find any mental event which is common to all cases of understanding? Understanding. Imagine that A gave the order 1, 5, 11, 19, 29 to B, and that upon A's arriving at 19, B said, "I understand." What happened to B? I think we should put a stop here while it's at the most interesting. Let's have an illustration if this can be seen. It's a little bit like there is an absolute
definite, sharp border between the outside world and the insideness. And this, do remember this is actually what we previously talked about, sharp concepts, not muddy concepts. When there's a sharp defining line, this is the same thing, even though we are not talking about the I or the person. And out here we have the outside world. And this, according to Chomsky, for instance, and many others, can exist by itself. And also this one. There is no interconnectivity whatsoever. So it might even be that this never existed, or that it might cease to exist. As we mentioned in when we take up Revelation texts, the impermanence is very important here. Because there is a timeline also, and the now is very important. Everything is done now. The understanding of the rules are not in the past, but there is a mental thing inside the head at this precise moment. There is no need for any past or future for the understanding. And this is also what I call linear time. You can call it linear time. I hope this is helpful. What do Wittgenstein propose? Well, it's very close to this. Something that we were given to us by, for instance, Stephen M. Rosen. The Klein bottle, with its interpenetration. So you see the inside goes out and it goes inside again. And the inside and the outside are not completely sharply defined. There is not black and white to that extent. And this is the life world. This is being, it admits a cornucopia of rules, habits, forms of life, doings, actual reality, I would say. Reality are not objects. It is what we do in connection with them. The observer is in on it, doing, acting, and having intentions. This is very close to the brain and the that idea, that we are a bubble floating around in this world without any connection whatsoever. We are absolutely shut out from the world. This is discredited here, shown in its full absurdity. I will go for some quotes now. So thank you very much, Feyerabend, for taking this in. Let's put the pause. We go to page 466. It's the solution for the person who has a private language, so to speak, in a quite different way. In order to find out whether ABCD really means the weather is fine. We have therefore to find out how ABCD is being used quite independently of any feelings on the part of the person who said ABCD and of any explanation given by him. I would call this a reformulation of the former above mentioned by Feyerabend. How we would be able to speak in the same way as to be able to be understood. How do we explain the communality of language? In this case, you get it even more. A, B, C, D cannot be found out by looking into the mental acts or whatever that would be into the person's head. We will never be able, as my professor said, to open up the skull of the audience of a lecture to find out whether they liked a lecture or not. That could never happen. And it's a logical misunderstanding, not an empirical misunderstanding or assumption. I myself, further down about 10 lines, could not possibly connect any sense with A, B, C, D before the elements of this sign have been meaningful by being made elements of a certain language game. It is not until they are participatory, they can have any meaning and can be understood by anyone else, including yourself. And I've written here, words only have meaning in a contextual, complex web of features. There's a lot going around here. Inside, outside. I think that's a pop sign. Inside, outside, or maybe it's not. But you get the point. Think of the Klein bottle. It is constant interpenetration going around with our inside, with the outside. And our words are transgressing that border, making that border very fuzzy, or if you like, fractal, to use another popular term here among us. Page 467. Bit down on the second paragraph, about 5 lines, 6 lines before the end. Thus analyzing the concepts of meaning, understanding, thinking, etc., we finally arrive at the concept of following a rule, something that Francis Wiley called FR, an acronym. It is only by rule following that we can see that somebody is following it. As in the example of the chess that we're coming to soon, it can never be sustained by an inner rules set in the head. We need to extend our arms and actually play chess. Of course, when we get extremely good at it, we can do it inside, or not visible, I would say. Not visible. But it's an outer activity that participates with the inner. And there is absolutely no either or situation. It's not outer only, it's not inner only. It's both. Both are participatory. And on page 468, line 5 or 6, I think. Well, I can read what's before. I'm a keen chess player and I now want to play chess, and I won't stop looking until I have found a chessboard and a suitable partner. Why not if you are Max von Sydow, speaking about the revelation you can play with death as to extend your life. There is a pun here. Entering into the timeline, your life will be terminable. It will be finite. Finitism will rule. So you will defeat, both in this example and literally, you will defeat death. But that's not even the main point. You will defeat or extend your thinking beyond any limits. Little by little, you will become wider and larger and more lengthened. That goes for thinking as well.
Mm.
If we go further down on the same page, it's only one paragraph. I'm afraid here, it's very hard to tell. Oh, what should we say? How could I help you? You go like 6 line more down, maybe, or 4. Yeah, somewhere there. We see that interpretations by themselves do not determine meaning. So an interpretation can be said to be a recounting or well, it is actually very close to rule number 2 by Francis Wylin, Bachelors and all that. It's a sort of an explanation, very uncommon in actual spoken language, and it will not by themselves determine meaning. Any explanation will not help to tell what the person who understands the rules are doing. Actually, the explanations do disservice to the point. They do not enter. And if we go down to the page, A, very down at the bottom, but as it now turns out that our criteria for deciding whether a person A intends to play chess or not are extended in time. It is not just this point on the timeline. It's an extension back to the past and to the future. We have to conclude that intending to play chess cannot be a mental event which occurs at a certain time, usually the present. So it's an extension in space, but also in time, taking more time into deciding. Why? Well, obviously the rules for chess or the language games or anything are built up on time, iterations, doing it many times, adding to the complexity. That is part of an extension of time, more time, not this like an axe, which is so paper thin. I heard an analytical philosopher once, was my professor, not the one I usually mention. He said, well, we're speaking moral philosophy. A murder is not a murder until at least 2/3 parts of it, if you get murdered by a knife, has entered the heart. Because it's very hard, he said, to tell when the murder happens. Is it when it's reached only 1 millimeter into the skin? Then you're not dead. Is it when it had entered 2 centimeters? No, that's not enough. You're still not dead. He can take out the knife or he can stop there. And I had the nasty demeanor to say something contrary. Well, even if you put the whole knife into the heart, that person won't be dead for another 1 or 2 minutes. And he got so angry. Now, this is the sort of reductio ad absurdum you happen into. And we also talked about intention. He said, well, the intention is just when you do it. Otherwise, you can speak of intention when you are born to murder someone or something else, whatever example you choose. It becomes reductio ad absurdum quite quickly. Further down at the same page, I think that's about line 15. It should be clear that when used in this way,
understanding cannot signify a mental phenomenon.
Oh, no.
Oh no. Well, just because it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's very hard to put any sense to this. If we go further down the page into the quote here, the last sentence in the quote here, but there are objections to speaking of a state of the mind here, inasmuch as there ought to be two different criteria for such a state. A knowledge of the construction of the apparatus quite apart from what it does. Let me put that part. The apparatus is, of course, all what we do. And to give an explanation by MRP would be something completely different. Have nothing to do with the reading process or playing chess. So to speak about mental phenomena is, now we got so far, speaking about mental phenomena, I think we understand now, is utterly nonsensical. But it has nothing to do what we actually are doing when we read, play chess, or whatever we do. It's an extra, unnecessary supplement, as Derrida would have it. So to cut it short, we both extend the timeline, bringing much more into what is happening all the way back into the past, maybe as way back as you can possibly get, and forward as well, because it has to do with intentions, what you want to do, what the world is designated you to do. The goal, sentido de la vida, all those things, and space.
Mm.
Space is widening. There's when that sharp cut border around yourself or whatever you imagine it are loosened up and extended. Space enters and becomes grander and grander. It's a widening of everything. It's quite like Alexander technique in a way, but I found this from the text here. Let's have a discussion over this and see here. If we can see between us. Kalle, what do you say?
Let's go to page 18 in the PDF. Page 18, it's page 465.
465, yeah.
So the first two lines. Somebody who really loves a certain person tells her that he hates her.
Yeah,
Does this fact make I hate you mean the same as I love you?
yeah,
I suppose we could place this in the category of irony.
possibly in some specific cases.
This happens seldom, but it happens.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
And this shows that you cannot only limit yourself to dictionary definitions.
No, that's true, yeah. True, yeah. It varies, yeah. It's context bound, which is wider and greater than anything.
And then a few lines down. Let's see. Here. 50 lines down, perhaps. But now imagine someone saying Mr. A and Mrs. B lived together for a long time.
Yeah.
I suppose this, yes, he speaks about slip of the tongue. So it could be a Freudian slip.
Could be Freudian slip, yeah, definitely. Very good.
That is
Like they never loved each other.
indeed. Like or in for the tower, don't measure the war.
No, exactly. A slip of the tongue. Definitely.
And the question is this relevant? Yes, this shows that absence is as important as presence.
Yeah, it is actually, yeah. Yeah, it goes with the timeline and also the extension of space, taking up also the opposition. Now, live is not really the opposition. It's kind of opposite in a way because it's not the same thing. Yeah.
No, because if he suppose there is a Freudian slip here, then what he meant is that they hated or they're indifferent to each other.
Possibly, yeah.
In that case, it's almost an opposite. They only live there indifferent to each other.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. Mr. A and Mrs. B. They seem to have different surnames as well.
And
I think also Saussure comes into the ABCD here because he says the signs are completely arbitrary. So it can actually be ABCD and we can use that instead without any history or relevance or.
And on this page 19, in the PDF, that is 466, up there, third line from above. To find out how ABCD is being used quite independently of any feelings on the part of the person who said ABCD and of any explicit YouTube.
Yes.
So when you have dictionary definitions, there is some kind of impression or notion that independence is possible.
Yeah.
As if the dictionary compiler thinks that hate can only mean hate, and love can only mean love.
Yeah. It's unlimited sense. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Which is far from the case, as we know.
And what is the relevance of this emphasis on chess or games? What is the great takeaway from this example with the chess, which goes on several pages? Hans, do you?
Yeah, it's to show that having an inner game of chess or having the rules of chess only inside your little box doesn't really make any sense. It is impossible to participate with another person inside your head to play the rules of the game. So the point is, well, in a nutshell, it's very hard to summon the whole thing, but you cannot say to yourself that I have the rules of chess independent of any existing world in the past, nor in the future, nor of the world. It is like it has already always been there inside my head. So even if there were no chessboards in the world, I would be able to play chess somehow. It's actually also an argument against Hugh Everett and Max Tegmark with their transcendental worlds.
Yes, indeed, because in this case, this is the board itself. It could be a metaphor of the world.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Very good, yeah. It could be the world. The chessboard could be the world. A real world that we interact with and do things in.
Indeed, indeed. So the chess, what do you call that?
The chessboard or
Not the chess,
the pawn.
yes, the pawns
Mhm.
themselves. Yes, I think this could be perhaps to say somebody to somebody who tries to defend the neighbor's interpretation.
Mm.
But think about a chess game.
Mm.
If you remove, let's say that in this, I have 2 or 3 options in life, I do, but then there would be another option going up.
Yeah.
But the question is it that really possible? Because it's a different board going up in Mars. Theoretically, they suppose it's possible, but the question is it possible? As if everything can be like a Hollywood film set, you can always reproduce things.
Yeah.
But they will never be authentic reproductions.
No, there would be some difference. Yeah, it's just when the eyes look at something, you will never look at it exactly from the same angle, with the same lighting, with the same intention. There will always be some difference. So that doesn't undermine the sameness of anything, but it tells us sameness is not this weird word identical or some mystical idea of what an identical thing would be. We still have identical, but it doesn't work the way we think.
Where did we have the phrase about the board game and about lack of it, the board? It's difficult to find it here. It was I think it was earlier. No, it's like a little bit like Hollywood when they can often ask permission. Let's say from the Vatican, can they shoot a movie inside?
Yeah.
And then, of course, often they might get no. Then it's really not authentic.
No, of course not. There are differences. There is a real world, but it doesn't work, so to speak, absolutely apart from us. We are cast into the world.
Let me see if I can find it. Can you check if you can find that absence of the board he made?
I don't know which page.
I don't know actually. That's
No.
why I'm asking you if he made the thought experiment. That's at some point. It's like not having the board itself. Let me see if you can find it together.
Well, I do remember it more or less, if it is the same thing I'm thinking of. In a world where there never ever was a chessboard.
Yes.
Yes.
Where is it? Where is it? Do you find it?
I know I have it in my head though.
Okay.
And yes, the example is that if there never have been a chessboard, you can still have the chess root somehow. And that doesn't make sense. It does make sense before you start to think about it. And I would say before you read Wittgenstein and try to understand him, you will have that idea. But what happens when you really think about it deep and hard, you realize, no, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It is connected to the world. The things around us are not arbitrary. And there is an example here.
Page.
No, well, this is on page 466. There's something different, not what you're looking for. And now suppose that those two people to yell and stamp instead of playing the form of chess we're used to. And this in such a way that their procedure is translatable by suitable rules into a game of chess. Should we still be inclined to say that we're playing a game? Doesn't really make any sense whatsoever. There's also an example of a tribe who never met a chess game, and how somehow they would be able to play chess anyway.
The report is so. Let me see if I can find it. But of course, we have the word board 12 times.
What he does, Feyerabend, is repeat different examples from different angles to make it more than clear. Because we need to put a thinking effort into this. The realization will not come easily.
Yeah, perhaps it's not really, we are almost there. Let me see.
I think we have to round up.
Yes, I don't know if you mentioned we perhaps only made it up.
Could happen, yeah. It does happen, yeah, sometimes, yeah. It does, yeah. But what he does, there are at least 8 examples he gives, and they're different. And the idea is to show the whole thing from different angles. And I think it's important to understand this article, neither philosophical investigations, that cannot be abbreviated. The reason being so many different examples of almost the same thing, but from different angles, could help you to reach the understanding, and that understanding takes time. It is not directly, there can't be a summary of philosophical investigations. One needs to do the work somehow. Thank you very much, Kalle, for participating. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. Have a beautiful morning, day, or afternoon, wherever you are. Bye-bye for now.